All right, so you've had some practice with the basics. You've stepped it up with your 45, 45, 90 degree right isosceles triangle. Now let's take a shot at a square. So we've already saved. We're on screen 1.3. Let's go back to our home screen. We're going to add one more geometry page. So now we're on lesson 1.4 on our screen. And we are going to create a square. Now, there are multiple ways to construct a square. I'm not going to necessarily say one's better than another, but I'm just going to follow through what I think is a very good strategy that mimics a lot of what you would do, typically speaking, if you were doing this with traditional construction equipment. So I'm going to start with a segment. And the first thing I'm going to do with that segment is go ahead and do the perpendicular bisector, which you guys have learned already in the first lesson. You go to Menu, Construction, Perpendicular bisector, bam, you're finished. And what we know that creates is a 90-degree angle. And of course, squares have 4 90-degree angles. So we're 1/4 of the way there. Now, what I want to do next is actually utilize the compass feature in this program. So when you go to construction, down here at the bottom, you've got compass. And this, again, as I said, this is going to be very similar to what we used to do. I'm going to put the segment, it doesn't matter which endpoint. I'm going to go from the intersection point to the end point here, okay? So intersection point to the end point. And then when you click the second time, that compass is actually going to move now. It created a full circle, but it really allows me to put it anywhere I want. I want it to be at the center or at the midpoint of the segment. So I'm going to leave it right there, and then I'm going to hit escape, okay? Now, as we can see, what that will do is it creates 2 different segments, essentially the same length as this one right here. So I'm going to go to points and lines. I'm going to do an intersection point, and I'm going to click the circle and click this line right here, and it will actually now have 2 points there, one here at the top, one here at the bottom. But what I'm interested in essentially is filling out a square, and I now have a point, and a point. So I'm 3/4 of the way there. I just need a 4th point out here somewhere. Now, you're kind of done with that circle at this point. And so the only thing it's going to do at the moment is maybe confuse. So what I would encourage you to do, if you right-click it, you have an option to hide it, okay? And the circle's gone, but what it did remains. So the circle was able to give me this line, it was able to give me these points, and so we're there. Then what we can do is essentially the same thing, but let's do it on the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to construct a perpendicular through this top point. So I'm going to go to Menu, Construction, want a perpendicular line. Remember, we click on the line and then just drag it over to where we want it to be. So there we go. There's our perpendicular. And then the last thing I need to do is find this point where these two connect. So what I'll do is another perpendicular, just construction perpendicular, and this time we'll do it in this end point. And you'll notice there that these will cross. Now I do want probably to make an intersection point here. So points and lines, intersection point, my 2 perpendiculars, and there we go. So what do we have? We have a square now. I can extend that square. I can rotate that square. no matter what, it's definitely a square, and we can have our students verify, just like we've done before, measure each length from point to point, and as long as we have taken care of our business, all four sides should be, in this case, 7.5. They don't necessarily need to be that, depending on what your size is. And then if we were going to measure the angles, might be worth doing, especially to have your students verify. We have 4 90-degree angles. And that should not change. No matter what we do to our square. 90 all around. And we're just going to go crazy and make that square as big as small. Rotate it if you want. It's not going to change anything at all.